Hey everyone, it's Trevortney Disturbed. Maybe I shouldn't be filming in vertical, but you're going to, this is going to be a different layout in just a moment. First of all, I'd like to say I'm sorry that I've been kind of gone for a little bit. I'm taking some time off to work on other things, and at some point I'll resume making content if it's something that you guys would like to see more of. I'm kind of lost on, what to make content about because my interest is kind of flailing in the Now series, and I am still collecting it because I pretty much finished my collection, and I only have 2 more to go until I make a new video. I'm waiting until the 88th one. But anyway, I got this video in my recommended. It's called Now That's What I Call the State of 2023 Pop Music. And I was intrigued by this, and I saw maybe the first couple minutes of it, and then I realized that I wanted to react to it. So I'm going to take a look at it and see exactly what it is. It's by Mike the Snare. I don't know if I've ever seen content by this channel, but all I know is that they have 250,000 subscribers, and it's extremely rare that anyone makes content, a 15-minute video about Now That's What I Call Music, and this absolutely warrants some commentary because, how do I say this? First of all, let me say, I'm filming outside. This is pretty much the only place I can film. I could film in the office over there, but that belongs to someone I live with, and I don't know if they're going to walk in and they need to use it. And then my room upstairs is just a mess, and you're going to see the mess, and it's just... Anyway, so if you hear cars or whatever, just ignore it. I'm going to try to ignore it. I'm going to watch this. I think it's really important. I think it could use some commentary. I know it's not important, but it's important to me, and it's my fucking life, so I make a video. I make a reaction. Anyway, it's been 2 minutes. Let's play this frickin' video. Let me rewind a little bit. Okay.
Have you ever been listening to your favorite band Train and asked yourself, is this what they call music? Don't worry. It is.
Yep.
Now That's What I Call Music is an ongoing series of hit song compilations.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Okay.
For now?
So far, it's pretty... That's the first commercial.
So to learn what they call music, I went to my local Target, went straight to the CD aisle.
Yeah, Target can sometimes be a clutch, because nowadays there are a lot of Targets that don't even sell, a good selection of what's actually new and popular. But, if you go to, what I call... for example, near my house, there's what I call the ghetto Walmart. I call this as a joke. It's like a stupid thing, but I call it the ghetto Walmart, and it's a Walmart that doesn't really have a wide variety, and they never have the Now CDs on time or a new release from an artist. Usually they have it months after, and I think they still have an advertisement for Now 73, even though the 87th one is, 88th one is coming soon. Well, maybe 87th one is here. But anyway, yeah, that's something I wanted to mention, is that Target and many other places, because the series has been drastically decreasing in popularity since 2018, and I think since 2021 it's been pretty much dead for the most part. That's the reason why.
Picked up some Now CDs, went back home, and began the process of educating
So
myself.
also, another thing I wanted to point out is the timing of this video. I think it is interesting because 2023, it has been a very offensively dull year in music, and they're mixing that with Now That's What I Call Music, and saying that this is what defines the state of pop music. So that's why I'm especially intrigued.
Now That's What I Call... The first question I have is about these numbers. Am I starting too late? Do I have to listen to Now 1 through 84?
No, you don't have to do that, but the newer track lists are absolutely abhorrent. I think since 83, well, 81 was a little bit questionable. There were definitely albums in the past that were questionable. They had questionable choices that weren't hits at all. But the newest ones are absolutely not like even a remotely accurate representation of what's new and current. And there is definitely, that's one thing you have to consider. we'll get into everything. I'm sure most of the people who watch this are now fans, and because they follow my channel, and they know most of the history behind the series and whatever. But we're gonna just take a look, because I did see that you went over some of it, and I don't want to pause too much.
To catch up on the lore, thankfully not, but knowing more about the series itself would be cool. Now, That's What I Call Music started out as a collaboration between Virgin Records and
the UK,
EMI. Virgin founder Richard Branson said, "We were looking for new ways to break new artists and were regularly being distracted by other labels trying to license our songs. So we decided we should make our own hit compilation. We knew we didn't have enough artists to succeed on our own, so we asked EMI to partner with us. They were the establishment, we were the upstarts, but they could see the logic in it and agreed. They also agreed on a name, which came from a poster Richard bought for the Virgin office. It showed a pig and a chicken with the caption, 'Now that's what I call music.' This poster is also why you'll see a pig in Now's marketing every so often. Now That's What I Call Music made its way onto UK shelves as a vinyl and cassette in November 1983. It's a double album with a pretty good track list, considering this only represented 2 labels. Phil Collins, Bonnie Tyler, Tina Turner, Men at Work, Men Without Hats.
I will say, even though the UK is a much smaller country, and the tracks, I think they're, you know, typically, technically speaking, there are fewer hits on the UK compilations. I think it actually is very impressive for the amount of songs that they have. That they typically have more American hits on their albums than the actual American series does. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up.
The Human League, a solid compilation which made it to #1 on the UK album chart. Some light competition in the pop hit compilation market followed, most notably the Hits album, which came from CBS and WEA.
Because of course they tried to capitalize on that. Fucking corporations.
But they gave Now a run for its money for a few years. But after 1989, the brand went all over the place, rebranding, going away for a few years, changing labels. The last mainline entry was in 2004.
It's kind of like how Billboard put Cashbox and Record World out of business because they were competing with each other for like 20 years, and then people saw that Billboard was the clear winner, even though, I don't know, maybe they should have kept those 2 companies just to secure the references, in my opinion.
Then again, I gotta remember that the reason I don't remember the Hits albums is because they never came to the US. Now, however, did in October 1998 solely through Virgin. Like the first UK edition, Now One was a solid first step. Backstreet Boys, Janet Jackson, Spice Girls, Hanson. Sure, you're missing big night.
A lot of the songs on Now One, actually I think Now One was probably the first. I mean, it was the first Now album, but it was missing a lot of hit songs. And
Virgin. Like the first UK edition, Now One was a solid
I'm just going to shut up.
Backstreet Boys, Janet Jackson, Spice Girls, Hanson. Sure, you're missing big 1998 songs from Shania Twain, Celine Dion, Will Smith.
I'm shocked by how many hits they missed.
So some of these track list placements are insane. Best example, Barbie Girl by Aqua is on here. Take a quick second to guess what could follow it. For real, take a second, really think it over.
Karma Police, I remember that.
If you want, just as, you know, compare with what the actual.
I know every single song on the first one.
I will say, if some guy out there manages to get this right, then the police need to arrest this man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Both the US and UK series have existed since their debut, leading to 115.
The first 3 albums, I don't know if anyone else, most people watching this know this, but if you're not familiar with the Now series in the US, the first 3 albums, it's, as of right now, it's unknown who compiled them. But since the 4th album, it was compiled by this one guy named Jeff Moscow, and he wanted to kind of bring like his DJ experience into the albums and kind of trim the tracks and make it like a like kind of almost like you're listening to one whole song. And that is a really good idea, but only if you know what the fuck you're doing. If you don't know what the fuck you're doing, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit later. And this, I have like no internet out here.
And 87 US editions as of August 2023. However, the 2
they're still going.
I don't the same thing. Like there's not a US or UK.
There should be. There should be.
Differentiate them.
There should be.
I could see a newcomer getting
absolutely
confused if they don't know that these are separate entities.
Yeah.
For example, Now 115 came out on July 28th of this year, which was followed on August 4th by Now 87.
Yeah.
The best-selling mainline U.S.
Now
compilation
5
was Now 5 in November 2000. However, if we include spin-offs, then the best-selling Now album ever
Good one.
is Now That's What I Call
Oh,
Christmas
funny,
from
funny,
2004. It's the 8th best-selling holiday album in Billboard chart history. But I don't care about Christmas. Santa never gave me 18 of some of today's biggest hits.
18 of some of today's biggest hits.
So to take back my power from that jolly son of a bitch, I got the 3 Now CDs released so far in 2023. Let's start at the beginning.
Oh God.
1985.
Dude. You made a massive mistake. I can't wait to see you tear into these. These are
85 starts
okay.
with Taylor Swift's Antihero. Forget
85th
music.
one isn't
now,
too
that's
bad.
What I call an economic stimulant. Unholy, yes. Super Freaky Girl, yes.
I think that's the first. Yeah, that's the first Nicki Minaj song in ages that they put on it now.
Good, Made You Look, Die For You, Golden Hour. You might not like all of these songs, but I think all of them make sense.
Except for My Mind and
all
Me.
All of the included songs are top 40 hits. The exceptions are Rosalind's Snap.
That was a
and
massive hit in
Lizzo's
Europe.
To Be Loved.
That should have been on Now
That song was
84.
all over TikTok, and it only got to 55? That is the most surprising thing I've heard about Lizzo in recent memory. Yeah, out of the 16 main songs here, I liked most of them. And I'm even starting to see the benefit of a compilation like this. Remember what it was like to...
See, Now That's What I Call Music, it as a series that like for what it is, what it currently is, like those albums in the past have already been established, have already been released. They're there. For what it is, as of now, I mean, I'd like to assume that it's the best that it could possibly be. That the tracks have been assembled, but it's more so the concept that should be appreciated. Like if you could put the literal statistical top 20 greatest hits of one season based on streaming data, sales data, radio data, even though that should be a smaller margin. That is a very beautiful concept, especially when you pair it with the DJ thing, where you put it in like the perfect order and make it sound like an experience, like a memory or like a time capsule. But in recent Now albums, and even with some of the older ones, that's really not what's happening, and it's not really to its fullest potential. And I don't think that people should recognize these as 100% accurate for what they are. It's more so, and I think that's the reason why it's really declined in popularity, because a lot of the hits nowadays, and we're not talking about What's Next. I think What's Next is a fairly good idea. I do think it's a little problematic because there's going to be some bias from labels that partner with Now, but I'm talking about main hits and how a lot of them are being sabotaged. They're going to talk about 86 and 87. Those are far worse, in my opinion. So I'd like to hear...
To listen to music in the vinyl and CD days. If you wanted You Get What You Give by New Radicals, you had to buy the entire CD from which it came. And that's not a bad thing. That record slaps. But some people felt annoyed that they had to buy a $10 to $15 CD to only listen to a fraction of it. But Now That's What I Call Music. You Get What You Give, plus Because of You by 98 Degrees,
yeah.
plus What I Got, clean version by Sublime. Now that's what I call one hell of a...
And the Jay-Z song, you can't find that on YouTube, the clean version.
Parenthetical real quick. The songs on Now compilations are all clean. While that's not a big deal for us adults, it does matter if you...
There are rare exceptions,
or if you're
but
at a company function, or if you're in a situation where you just don't want swear words around. Even the numbers for these entries work. Let me explain. At first, the Now team thought that numbering each entry would be bad, since it would immediately date each album, but in practice, they found that it helped with brand building. The number could serve as a nostalgic reminder of where you started with the series, or a marker for an important time in your life. My newborn is such a bundle of joy. I love being a parent. How old is he? When did Now 86 come out? Good question. Now 86 came out in May of this year. Now 86 starts with...
Okay, yeah. And then with the recent ones, like for example, Now 79, Jeff put Astronaut in the Ocean as the first track, and the second track was Friday, which was only a hit in Europe, which, I mean, should have been on there. It was a nice song, but the first two tracks I feel like were all kinds of messed up. I feel like some reordering should have been done. I don't know what's going through his head. I think another problem is the ordering, because a lot of the tracks aren't as bad, but I think it's the ordering that
Yeah,
kind of throws
that
people
makes
off.
sense. TikTok's influence
No, it doesn't.
seeps in pretty hard with Miguel's Sure
I don't know why they put the sped up version of
thing.
that. I think that's pretty
Sped up.
stupid.
Kill Bill, yes, absolutely, 100%. Yes, Kill Bill, absolutely. Escapism, for sure. Players, yeah. The rest, though...
Under the Influence, Nonsense was a relatively big hit. I will defend them. Calm Down, I think that one should have been on 85. Bloody Mary was a big hit. What else? Let me go back. Yeah, the rest of them weren't really hits. Let me
yes,
see.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, Kill Bill.
Heaven
absolutely.
was, but not until
Escapism,
Now
for
87
sure.
came out.
Players,
That should have been
yeah. The
delayed.
rest, though, sure. The second half has a bunch of songs from the bottom half of the Hot 100. Granted, in 2023, it's harder than ever to comprehend.
Yeah, another thing to consider is that the popularity of pop music has really, really dwindled in recent years, and country music, especially now more than ever, like country songs are all the way at the top, and Latin and reggaeton is bigger now than it's ever been before, and so that, and then you got to factor in the album bombs, and a lot of old songs are returning to the charts for like a week or two, and it's becoming like a trend, and then you still got hip hop, and that's kind of pushing a lot of the pop songs that are on the charts into the lower half of the charts, and that means that like Forget Me by Louis Capaldi and Nonsense by Sabrina Carpenter will either chart like super low or won't chart for that long, and they might not make the year-end list. So that's one thing to consider, is that they're mainly focusing on pop music, and so that's why it's going to look like these songs weren't big hits, but really they're being pushed down by all this nonsense that's happening on the charts right now. As opposed to before the 21st century, when the charts, the patterns of the charts felt a lot more organic, and there wasn't always new stuff always coming from the top and pushing everything down, and album bombs like almost every single week, and not to mention most of the songs are incomprehensible now with all the reggaeton and whatever. Well, that's where you add in all the bias, but that's the stuff that pushes pop music out of the charts. And then you got to remember there's the bubbling under Hot 100. Sometimes they put those songs on there, which is good. So keep in mind that had those songs not been pushing the pop songs down, those ones would have overtaken it.
Based solely on the charts. Like Sabrina Carpenter's Nonsense is on here. That song peaked at 56, but I've seen a bunch of people clamoring for it online. For the people who loved it, they loved it. That said, were Lottery or I'm Not Here to Make Friends big on TikTok or something?
They were big for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then they
plugging into the culture hard enough.
They
but
plunged
I feel like
into
I'm
popularity.
pretty jacked into this mainframe hard enough to hack the planet. Your brain might.
For example, I'm Not Here to Make Friends. That was like talked about a lot for the whole Sam Smith thing, and there were some people that were saying that the music video was disgusting, and it was really only for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then the popularity in the US dwindled. In the UK, I'm not quite sure. I think it became a hit. And then Never Gonna Not Dance Again. That was big for maybe a few weeks. And Trust Fall. Not massive hits at all.
Take this opportunity to lay into current pop music and how it sucks and how it was way better when Emblem 3 was around.
I'm not gonna say that all modern pop music sucks, because that really is a generalization. But it is really, really difficult to forget. To forget that there is to forget that there is really bad stuff like dominating the charts right now.
I know your sister turns everyone on.
But across Now's history, most albums have had their mix of undeniable hits and deniable hits.
Yep.
For example, Now 35, released in August 2010. This is objectively one of the best Now albums because it came out when I was in high school. That one had California Girls, Alejandro, Rock
I would say
Body,
37, and 37 was a really good one. 57 was a really strong one. 67 was probably the best one. 10 for me is where because I understand that people will say, oh, this was the best one, this was the best one, because they have memories attached to it. 10, I don't know why, but I listened to that one a lot during the pandemic, and it kind of brought back memories. I would listen to it like while playing Minecraft. And the 10th one is a really good album. I think there's actually only one song on it that ruins the flow of the album, and I would say that's the Blink-182 one. But the all the other songs on the album kind of like pack together, and it really sounds like you can hear kind of the sadness and angst following 9/11, when you listen to Now 10 all the way through, I think I would I don't know, Now 60. I would say Now 10 is better than Now 64, but Now 64 is very well put together, and also Now 57 has some really strong ones on there as well. But let's hear what you're gonna say.
Cooler than me, but do you honestly remember Impossible by Chantel, Lover Lover by Gerard
That one,
Lehman,
no.
Pray For You by Jason and the Long Road to Love? Actually, I'll help you with that last one. It's the country song where the guy sings about all the different ways.
I love these little jokes. Because of course it's inevitable when you compile Now CDs, you're gonna get some kind of stupid songs that became hits.
The latest CD, Now 87, kicks off with some big names. Miley Cyrus's Flowers.
That should have been on
World's
86.
Chemicals. Flowers being on this compilation specifically is kind of weird.
Yes.
Since it was a hit back in January, but this CD came out in August.
Exactly.
Maybe they just couldn't get the rights for this one until now.
That I don't understand. Why is it that they don't get the rights until later and not initially when the song is licensed? And then also there are instances where the UK gets to feature those songs on their album before the previous album that the song should have been on, that's American, is released, which is very confusing.
Awful House by Jonas Brothers is fun. It's about how their family might fight, but they're always brought back together thanks to love. And Waffle House, that's a hell of a testimonial, isn't it? I'd be estranged from my family if it weren't for the All-Star Special. Side note, on their website, Waffle House calls their dishes nutritionals. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm loving the Pink Panthers representation. Boys a Liar Part 2 is
Boys a
on
Liar
here,
Part 2, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. That one should have been on Now 86 though. Definitely. A lot of these songs are delayed, and it makes it not even worth predicting anymore. Like, why the hell are we still predicting these? Because you're going to get a lot of them wrong because they get delayed, so that's why I don't predict them anymore. I just make my own, reworked versions. I can actually put them all on the screen for you right now. Some of the earlier ones are not as good, but I think at a certain point, I think maybe since the 77 version, which would be the 5th, or maybe the 9th? I don't know, and the What's Next tracks, of course, I don't really have much of a problem with them, but like I said, What's Next is kind of problematic because, first of all, there's label bias, and then there are other songs, a lot of times they don't predict these correct, most of the times, actually, and they don't really consider, like, what's actually dominating, like rising artists, for example, that are currently sort of doing well, I think should be more focused on. But the What's Next tracks, there are some instances where there are some that I would have liked to have seen. But I think more of the issue with What's Next is that the songs are typically not of very good quality, especially with Now 80, where they put a whole bunch of alternative gunk on there, and Now 81 as well. You can watch my video about that, but yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, or as it's called on Now 87's track list on streaming, The Boy's a Liar Part 2. The rest is an even more mixed bag than Now 86. On one hand, it's cool to see picks from folks like Zara Larsson and Gracie Abrams, or...
Yeah, the Now 87 track list, I didn't get to talk about this, but it's a very messed up track list. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now, so I'm not going to waste time trying to find it, but...
as the album on streaming calls her, Gracie Abrams. On the other hand, though, a chunk of these songs never charted at all. Again, that doesn't mean they weren't big in some other way, or that they will never chart, or that they are bad. I like Heart Wants What It Wants by BB Rexa, but, like, where has it been?
Exactly.
'Cause it's on here. Now is considering it a hit. It's kind of ironic.
You know what? I want to trust that Now knows what they're doing, but at the end of the day, it's one guy, and then a meeting pretty much like decides whether or not the choices are right, or whether or not they oppose to it, and that means that there's going to be a lot of bias, and I feel like it should be more vote based, and more like what songs do you think people are talking about? Because you're right, BB Rexa, that song, where the hell's that been? And the Gracie Abrams song, I had never even heard of her, and I'm like watching upcoming artists like a hawk. And also, for example, what warrants her to be in the main section instead of in the what's next section. I don't get it.
Ironic then that this one just happens to end with two of the biggest songs on the chart right now.
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned it yet, but all of these compilations end with exactly 2 country songs, and one of them is always by Morgan Wallen. Tracy Chapman's Fast Car is great, and Luke Combs' cover of it is good because it is just Fast Car and he doesn't really do a lot with it. But then again, you don't really have to do a lot to that song to make it any better. Like, it's fine. And then the final song is Morgan Wallen's Last Night. This song is like a hydra, except when you cut off a head, 2 think pieces take its place. There are many things you can say.
Just an absolutely awful song. Not even really the song itself, but the fact that it somehow managed to top the Hot 100 for 16 weeks is something I will never ever understand, is how this generic, boring-ass song managed to top the Hot 100 for 16 weeks. 16 weeks. Mind you, Old Town Road was 19 weeks. Despacito was 16 weeks. Uptown Funk was 14 weeks. And this generic-ass, lame-ass country song was 16 weeks on the chart. On number 1. I don't get it. It's probably going to be longer. I don't get it. I seriously, I don't understand.
Morgan or what the song's dominance means, and yet there is little to be said about the
Exactly.
song itself. Not even the commercial for Now 87 knows what to do with it. And yet it will likely be the biggest song of 2020.
Ranked by Billboard.
Why?
Exactly.
It's by a recognizable name. It's got enough influences from pop, rap, and country to bring fans of those genres in, but not too much of them to alienate those who aren't fans. Some portion of his audience likes the idea of listening to him despite the imaginary liberal boogeyman. The melody is genuinely the catchiest to hip-hop music this year, and if the other songs across these 3 compilations are any indication, nothing else comes close to being as catchy. Sure,
that is not true.
Claim the #1 spot for like a week, but then fall because people move on. And sometimes songs rely on melodies from older songs as a kind of cheat code. Which brings us to the first thing we can take from pop music in 2023. People really like old music.
Yep.
There's a lot of sampling older songs or just older songs outright. Creepin' interpolates a Mario Winans song. Hold Me Closer interpolates
Super Freaky Girl.
Baby Don't Hurt Me interpolates What Is Love. I'm Good interpolates Jesus Christ but as a sound wave. And Bloody Mary, Die For You, and Sure Thing are all just older songs. I'm also starting to realize...
It's really sad, honestly, because I saw a video about... I'm sorry I keep moving a lot. I'm going to stop doing that. I saw a video by this guy, Diamond X Studios, and I want to put the video here and just show you, like, the quote, and because really I can't explain it any better than he does, but it's essentially about like you know, this generation is clinging on to older hits and older sounds because they don't want to be the spearhead for something new, or, you know, I mean, music is pretty much, it's not really going anywhere. It's kind of, it feels as advanced as it will ever be. We have all the technology now, we have blah blah blah, and it just feels like from here it could only get worse. So why not just stream all the old stuff that you know, Gen Z has never heard before, which is a great idea, but it is just kind of sad because it really just, it's really pathetic for all these people who are trying to do something and failing to do something new and interesting, and the only ones that are succeeding are the ones that have big loyal fan bases like Taylor Swift. I'm not gonna die on that hill, but I think you can see where I'm going with this. Why is
there's like no rap on these things? There are rappers, Ice Spice, Future, 2C.
Every now and then there is
pop songs. Now, for 2023, this might actually make sense. So for reference, I went back to 2018's compilations.
Oh yeah.
Mind you, this was the year of I Like It.
Okay, yeah, 2018 they really did. They did a really bad job with hip hop, but I think in 2020 they did a lot better. In 2021,
a ton of Drake hits like
in terms
Thanks
of featuring
for What, In My Feelings, God's Plan, and the only pure rap songs from that year's compilations were Stir Fry, Taste, and Lie by NF.
Maybe I should turn off the captions.
I have nothing against NF, and if you're a fan of him, that's totally fine. But if he is getting on your popular hit compilation instead of Drake, something's gotta be up. There's also not much country. Like I mentioned before, any country songs have been sequestered to the last 2 spots.
There's been a lot more country recently.
Now seems to be boosting its country presence with more specific spin-offs. There's even an entire country section on their website. And hey, there's also been a few rap-specific compilations.
There should be more. Like, they make, first of all, I think there should be more country albums. There should be, like, at least 2 a week. Not 2 a week, Jesus Christ. At least 2 a year. And hip-hop is, at least as far as the United States goes, there's the holy trinity of popular music. There's pop, hip-hop and rap, and country. And pop, that's their main thing, right? So we've got to deal with hip-hop and country. Country, they release one maybe like every 9 months. I think they should release one at least twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, because country, especially right now, has at least half the audience that pop does. And those are the 3 genres that have traditionally, since the 90s, been dominating, maybe the 2000s, been dominating the music charts. And I feel like, especially the hip-hop, they hardly release hip-hop albums, which is stunning, because hip-hop has at many points within the past 20 years been more popular on the charts than pop music at certain points in time. Nowadays, hip-hop is declining a little bit, and one of those spaces is kind of shared between hip-hop and pop, and then another one has opened up for Latin and reggaeton, for reasons I don't quite know.
I mean, a few.
Let's
Actually,
take a look.
Now that I think about it, where is the pop music in languages other than English? BTS has been on a Now disc once, and it was their
Yeah,
song.
I think it's going to be because it kind of stirs listeners away, but there are exceptions for songs like Gangnam Style. But yeah, BTS is way bigger than Now represents them to be. And that's not to say I like BTS. As musicians, I don't really have a problem with them. I have a problem with their fan base because they are overrated. And I think that they are not worth the hype for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I agree. BTS had a lot of big ones that actually had momentum on the charts and radio, like Dynamite and like Butter and like Boy with Love, and I could my mind's really foggy right now, but I could think of a lot of songs.
With Coldplay. Blackpink has been on a Now disc once, and it was their song with Selena Gomez.
I hate that
Bad
one still.
Bunny has never been on a Now CD.
Good,
Think about that.
good.
Arguably the biggest
Good. That's the one thing. It's one of the very few things that they actually abstained from doing is putting Bad Bunny on their Now CDs. Good. Keep him off of there because that is not what I call music. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound ignorant saying that every single Bad Bunny song is terrible, but every single Bad Bunny song sounds very, very similar. And so that's why I am glad that so far they haven't put one on there. Except for I Like It. That one should have been there, even though that was a feature.
star in worldwide pop music is not what some would call music. I guess it's also worth mentioning the selection of extra tracks on each compilation called What's New.
But to be fair, he is extremely popular, and I think if they're trying to cater to a wide audience, they should put him on there, even though he is just...
Next, at the end of each disc, there's 3 or 4 tracks from up-and-coming acts.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get it right and predict a big hit. Now 53 had Shut Up and Dance.
He brought up ICU's music video. That actually was a hit before Now 86 came out, before they predicted it. Walk the Moon, David Kushner got a hit. I don't know if that's on a Now CD. What else? Oh, there's so many examples. Billie Eilish and Shawn Mendes, they got right. But they got a lot fewer right than they should. They should know a lot more than what they predict.
Now 64 had
Yep.
Ocean Eyes. Now 71 had Number 1 Fan by Muna. Now 81 had The Last Man on Earth by Wolf Alice. Sorry, I need a second to let the taste wash over me.
Yeah.
So there it is. Now that's what I would mostly call music. But it's like a famous philosopher once said, does Now have a future? It's a brand that exists mainly on CDs. What it would call music is not as accurate to the times as I would like, and
Yeah.
streaming is just kind of looming over it while licking its lips. Will Now survive for another 87 compilations? Or another 115 in the UK? The answer surprised me.
In the UK, yeah, because the UK, oh god, the UK. They are known to kind of be a bit culty when it comes to certain aspects of their culture. There's a whole video about it by the same guy that I mentioned, but now is a lot bigger of a deal over there, and it's a lot more of like a cultural thing there. And they're still selling very big numbers, whereas in the United States, it's kind of like, fuck off, we got streaming now. We don't need those Now albums, or or it's the soccer moms that say, "Oh, I remember I used to listen to Now 36 in my car while I drove my kids to soccer practice," or whatever, or those Facebook comments that say, "Oh, Becky, they're still releasing these. I didn't know that they're still releasing these. They're on 87 now. That's crazy." Which is, that's pretty much the only legacy it has. I'd say maybe the last successful album was 71. 73 was a little bit successful, and then 74, ever since 74, drastically decreased in popularity, and that's because of the pandemic, and people didn't drive as often, and people spent a lot of time streaming, and a lot of grannies who thought that it was only possible to discover new music by listening to Now CDs discovered that there's something called streaming on their phone. And this whole thing, that's not to say that I don't think Now should exist. I think in its current state it shouldn't, because it's not really doing anything good for the music industry, but I think what it should be doing is creating an accurate time capsule for different seasons, because it comes out 4 times a year, which I think is a fair number, because an average of like 110, 120 songs become hits. I don't know. I think that was, I have to do the calculations, but I think that's a fair number. And 4 is a fair number to give for each year. But the problem is, shit. They're putting a lot of songs on these albums that don't quite represent the times, or that don't really have any sort of relevance. And they're missing out a lot of really important ones. Like, for example, last year they missed out Easy on Me by Adele, which for pretty much the entire winter season, 2021 going into 2022, was like the only song anyone was talking about, unfortunately. And they delay other songs, like 81 had maybe 4 or 5 songs that were delayed. So that makes it difficult to predict, and it makes people who potentially look back at these think, oh, those songs didn't become big until 81, even though those songs should have been on 80. And it's just problematic. The execution is very problematic. The way that things are done just don't match the way that things should have been done, and I just think that sucks, And I think it would make a lot more. It would reach a wider audience to get the most accurate representation.
Maybe. First off, we have to remember compilations, or another 115 in the UK. The answer surprised me, and it might surprise you too. Maybe. First off, we have to remember that, in some part thanks to my efforts, you're welcome, the CD market still exists. There are still people out there buying and playing CDs. You know what else plays CDs? Cars. Cars still have CD players.
A lot of them don't.
The Now team will tell you in interviews, the average age of a U.S. car is 11 and a half years, which means most cars on the road right now still have CD players. However, new cars usually don't have them, so while the Now series is safe for the time being in that regard, that might be an issue in like 5-10 years. In case CDs ever die out, they never will if I have a say, goddammit, Now has also moved to put its compilations on streaming. Plus, they've also become a playlist curator. On Spotify, they have their own profile and a Today's Top Hits playlist with nearly 13,000 likes. By comparison, Spotify's own Today's Top Hits has 34 million. Even with a grasp on the CD market and a push into streaming and live events...
Unfortunately, when it comes to streaming, people kind of don't see the point, because you literally have every single song. Not every single song, but like almost like every single hit song, at your fingertips, and people just think, why not make my own playlist? But...
know what the future holds for Now. At the end of the day, these CDs are just another way for labels and artists to get their songs to more people. And if they find
I love fucking zoom in on the crab and then zoom in on the pig, and like Now in the UK is so much weirder, and so much, they're not afraid to look more appealing. The US now is pretty much killing itself by you know, not marketing their CDs well, or whatever it may be, or, you know, not looking as appealing.
Then this quickly becomes, then that's what I used to call music.
Yeah.
And if it does fade away, there's a hole in the market that needs to be filled.
Are you ready for some of today's songs? Live, it never die. Women are my favorite guys.
That would be a good idea, is to put a whole bunch of, like, weird-ass songs on a Now CD.
Don't pee on the floor, use the Commodore.
What?
It doesn't even make any sense! I'm the youngest boy!
Yeah, that's funny. I love the little comedy thrown here and there. That's something I should do with my videos, but I'm not really good at comedy. Anyway, very good video for the most part. I'm glad that, you know, there's some, you know, claims being made here and there that, like, I'm just biting the bullet, or I'm just knocking on wood, or, you know, like, this is not a definite whatever. Like, for example, maybe I should look back at the older Now albums as a reference, and that's great because the newer albums don't really represent any greatness that the series used to have, and it may not be entirely their fault. I mean, the pop music scene has really drastically decreased, but the least you could do is try to make the best of it. And I really just don't understand why they're adding a lot of songs that really just don't seem to have had, you know, any success on the charts, or, you know, on streaming or sales or whatever, as opposed to songs that would be more favorable. And that's not me saying that there are other songs I like better than those songs. I just think that there are a lot more options if you want to, you know, not just focus on the charts. You know what I mean? For example, there are songs that did you know, charted high in many European countries, but that never really crossed in the U.S., like Ferrari, Wellerman, Friday, which was put on Now 79, but I think that was put too high. And then also, when weird placements are made, like Creepin' as the first track, and then I think the second was like I'm Not Here to Make Friends, and then that track list was just really weird, and the tracks just should have been rearranged. Like, for example, I think every Now CD should start with a track that sums up the whole album. Like, for example, I do something similar. I'm doing a very long and complicated project, but it's inspired off of the Now series, and it's called Power of Pop because I didn't know what the hell else to name it. And it takes place. It started in 1966, and so far I'm still working on it, and I just finished the 25th album. And these are what the track lists look like so far. And I usually start the albums off with a very well-known song, typically. Like, for example, the most recent one, I put Lean on Me by Bill Withers on that. I think that was a fair choice. The 21st one was Proud Mary, which I think that's a good choice for a first album, a first track. Oh, I should have read the comments. I'm so stupid. And then the 23rd one, I think that was Shaft, which is... I'm just naming examples. I can give the rest of them here if you want to see them. But anyway, let's read the comments just to get some further insight. Because, you know, you'd be surprised. A lot of people... Just from looking at this, it really looks like what it actually is, which is, you know, just a thing that labels kind of get together and push out just to see who will buy them. And a lot of times there is bias, and maybe some artists, you know, will pay a certain amount of money to get placements or whatever it may be. As someone who collects and rips CDs, the Now series is a pretty great value. I mean, back in the day, absolutely. But nowadays, I mean, they're being sold for like $12, $13. Some places sell them for $20, which is crazy. If you're just buying them for the songs, then that's a terrible deal. But if you're buying them to collect them, it's still not really 100% ideal. But it's not, you know, it's not really terrible. I swear one of those CDs being lost somewhere in your childhood attic is one of the Immediate guarantees, yeah. Yeah. Okay, the Bloody Mary comment. Yeah, I mean that's warranted. It's crazy, but it's warranted because that song did have a resurgence in popularity. One of the returns say that you're thankful. Back in the day, my best friend had whichever Now CD had blue on it, and I kid you not. Oh, that's funny. The Now 4, yep. Now albums did Barbenheimer 2.5 decades ago. That's a good one. The most surprising thing I've heard about Lizzo. Yeah, that's really weird. That's another thing I forgot to mention is that sometimes they do that. They put To Be Loved on Now 85, which should have been on Now 84, and they didn't put About Damn Time on any of the Now CDs, which is just really weird. They did that, I think, with My Universe, and they did that with some other songs that were like weird selections, and that, like, I don't know. It's just not very fair, and it doesn't make for a very accurate representation. Has nothing to do with it, but it's cool. We Are Half Broke, where we do have a style. Cat 20 years. Owed one of these CDs. They had enough material impact. Oh, that might get you memorized. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So for the most part, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I've wanted to talk about the Now series for quite a while, and I did an interview a couple years back with Rolling Stone, which I still don't know how the hell that happened, but you know, and I completely wasted that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, the series has had and has so much potential. And I think it's more so the beauty of the concept of a compilation album released every, you know, like 4 times a year, like as a time capsule, and like you look back at that and say like, oh, these were the biggest hits of this time or whatever. And it's more so the beauty of that than the execution itself with Now That's What I Call Music. They have hit, you know, they have hit, they have missed many times. But I think the times where the hits are definitely memorable, and to many people they are. But I think just the modern music scene especially, and also our new ways of consuming music, are stirring people away from Now That's What I Call Music, and maybe rightfully so. I mean, it should be, I'm sure people make their own playlists, but it should be, I feel like if they wanted more consumers, they should do more to reach that, because a lot more artists, if they really can't get the rights to it, then that means a lot more artists are rejecting the opportunity to appear on Now CDs than expected, than ideal, and that really sucks, and maybe that says something. But then again, these are big labels that put this together, and not to mention Universal is like, I think Sony is like one of them is one of the richest companies in the world, and they could easily pay, you know, to get the rights to pretty much any hit they wanted if they really cared about making a good, you know, accurate compilation album. And then there's the worry that Jeff Moscow or anyone who's working on compiling these CDs isn't aware of a song that's been doing, that's pretty much warranted a placement on these albums. Mind you, these are the 5. I'm going to bring up the 5 quote unquote patched track list. The most recent patched track list I made. They're not perfect, but they are like, I'd say 95% accurate. Most of these songs were like one of the 20 biggest pop hits of each season, and I find it strange that, you know, a lot of these are scrapped in favor of a Gracie Abrams song, or a BB Rexa song that didn't chart anywhere, or a Sam Smith song that was only talked about for 2 weeks and completely forgotten about. Anyway, I've talked too much, and I've been talking for 50 minutes, but let me know what you think about this. I'm glad you made this video. If the guy's watching this, I would love to, you know, talk to more people about this, because I did mention that, you know, my interest in the series in terms of its execution and how it's assembled has dwindled, but it's more so the concept that is still, you know, fascinating to me, and you know, kind of taken inspiration from that with these older albums. Anyway, yeah, but if you want to talk about that, if anyone wants to talk about this, you know, feature me in a video or whatever, or, you know, even just leave your comments below and I'll do a video replying to your comments. Anyway, the collection video is coming soon. I might do a Q&A, so leave some questions in the comments if you'd like to see them. Aside from that, I really don't have much else to say. I guess just I want to take some more time to work on certain things. Maybe I'll be back and actually rework this channel into a music reviewing channel, a music kind of discussion channel like I said I would do. But right now I'm currently just kind of focused on other things, and it's not really the first thing on my mind. So just you know, leave me comments and what you think about this, and also questions. I can do a Q&A. And then I'm also planning on, when 88 comes out, I'm planning on doing a collection video. So look forward to that, because I actually recently finished my entire collection of the main albums, which for a long time I was missing like 10 or 15 of them, and I didn't actually remember. I forgot about it for a while, and I didn't remember until I started cleaning my room. So once I finally had a debit card and some money for my first job, I decided to order them, and you know, for $20-$30 I managed to get the last 15 that I was missing. I think that's a pretty good value, but I'm finished the collection, except for the ones that haven't come out yet, of course. So that's great. I'm gonna go because I don't want this video to be any longer than it already is. You guys have a lovely day. Give me ideas for new content. Maybe I will share you know, more of my articles and whatever. And that's the end of it. I'm sorry this video was so long, and I don't think anyone's gonna watch the whole thing, but this was a very good, the video that I reacted to was very well done and funny, and I'm glad that someone actually talked about this. But I think it's what's more kind of, I think what a lot of people are going to focus more on is the aspect of like where pop music is in 2023. So that's good. You know, whatever floats your boat. Anyway,